Turning our attention to another government entity, the SEC, and Gary Gensler making some waves this week. He is in a party mood. First off, last week, we saw this was really ominous. We started talking about it. It was probably like last Thursday, right after we did this show last week. But the news about Kraken and all we heard, which, I've been pounding the drum as it's been my favorite exchange, period. And I think some people share that sentiment. But we saw that there was potentially something coming with Kraken. We didn't know what it was. Basically, just that an announcement concerning Kraken and selling unsecured or securities, basically
securities. Yeah.
And then we saw the announcement. It wasn't unbelievably surprising to me what it was, but it was basically just that the ability to stake centralized on Kraken is no more. That's what they were really going after. And basically, Jesse Powell, I saw, who is the CEO of Kraken, was talking about not the rules from the SEC not being clear, and you don't really give them an opportunity to follow them or anything like that, which I think there's probably some legs to. But
sure.
First off, with this one, and I mean, I'd imagine we see this coming to Coinbase eventually too. I mean, this is something I don't think, obviously, nobody should be doing anyway. I mean, you don't want to have anything on a centralized exchange, let alone be sitting there staking. I mean, that's just not something that I would be doing. Even though I'm a fan of Kraken as far as exchanges go. You want to be doing that through DeFi. But what do you make of this? I mean, is this the first of like a million other dominoes to fall? What do you think will happen here in terms of the SEC going after Kraken?
Yeah, I think so. The funny thing was I did see a comment from Jesse Powell, and he said, now that I think about it, I wish we wouldn't have made the agreement to stop all of it, where all these other places are just gonna pay a fine and just keep doing it, right?
Right.
He said, the process to get all of this stuff done properly takes forever. And they probably make a substantial amount where a $30 million fine isn't going to hurt them. They've probably made 140 million or 160 million or whatever it was. I forget the number. So 30 million, out of that, you still have a nice little, profit maker. So he said, I really wish we wouldn't have committed to stopping it. They had, I think, filed the paperwork. It just never went through. So, that goes to show you how backed up the SEC is, and backwards their processes are. They want to regulate everything, but they don't really give these guys the opportunity to do it the right way, because they submit stuff and it just takes forever. They're stuck in not litigation, but you know what I mean? It's the process. It's all the red tape and, all the hoops they have to jump through to do it. They would just be better off paying a fine and saying it's okay.
Right.
So I can kind of see Coinbase doing the same thing. I don't think they'll ever agree to stop. They probably will just pay a fine and move on. Now, I do know Coinbase is one of the most regulated exchanges in the United States as far as compliance with these guys, with the IRS, with the SEC, all that good stuff. So who knows how that'll play out? But if they play their cards right, and all they have to do is pay a fine and just keep doing what they're doing, are they really going to shut them down? Who knows? I doubt it.
Right.
It's just one of those. It's one of those things where I think the SEC, these three-letter agencies, try to get way more involved than what they really need to be because they're, not going after the right things. However, that being said, we hear Gensler, I believe, say, "Not your keys, not your coins." That was kind of ironic coming out of his mouth. It was just wanted to say, yeah, Richard Hart said that a long time ago. You're just now catching up. So,
yeah,
I do agree with that. If that's the only message that's taken from that whole thing, then great, because people need to hear it even from them.
Well, I certainly agree with that message. And somebody actually commented that on one of my videos on YouTube the other day. And I said, and I would say to you too, and I want to know what your thoughts on this is like, he was like, dude, didn't you see Gensler's video though? And I'm like, well, I mean, Politicians say a lot of things. I mean, I understand that. I mean, I don't know. Look, I mean, there is a limit. There's a regulation. Well, that's kind of dumb to say, but there's a limit to regulation. I mean, now as far as exchanges, I mean, these are for the most part, like public companies, obviously that you can go after and clearly see what they're doing, and they have KYC processes and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But when you get to DeFi, I mean, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. I don't understand how they could come in and we're going to turn this off. We're going to do this. We're going to, there's so much out there. I mean, look at all these different dexes and liquidity pools and all this crazy, unbelievable stuff that you can get into in DeFi. I mean, I don't know what their plan would be for that long term. I'm sure they want their piece of the pie, so something will
Probably.
come from it. I just don't know what that process would look like. I mean, it's one thing to send letters to all these exchanges and different crypto entities and stuff. I mean, I guess you could do that with DeFi too, but there's so many protocols and so many different ways of going about it. I just don't know how you could regulate it that well.
Well, you look at what they did to Tornado. They just
Yeah,
basically blacklist any address that uses it.
there you go.
So,
Yeah.
when people say, "Well, they can't do anything to us," well, yeah, they can. Look at Tornado and see how that really affected everything.
Hmm.
And then you got people dusting some accounts who had no use of, they were not using it at all, and now they're affected. So, um, we definitely need to get that straightened out too, because there are decentralized protocols that I would be very worrisome if they just shut them off or blacklisted addresses. You know, that being said, I think it would cause development of ways for us to maybe transact with crypto that did not involve these people that were blacklisting addresses. So, you
Mm.
know, there would be different on and off ramps in different countries that maybe we would have to use, or I would just have to leave the United States. So,
Yeah, right. There's
that's
always some way out.
that's
Yeah.
always an option, and then be like, screw you guys, and your rules suck, and your overreach has just gotten to be entirely too far. So there's many ways to look at it and quite a few solutions. Hopefully it doesn't, come to that, but we don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's a real shame because I mean, the greatest country in the world, and sometimes it's just the the slapping the regulation and slapping more and more red tape on people. It really sucks because you really try to limit what people are able to do, and they do want you to stay that way. It's like they do want people to stay in their lane, remain in the middle class, and not
Mhm.
really strive for anything else. And that's they're winning for the most part. I mean, that's what most
Yeah.
people do. So.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, we saw the news about Paxos, the BUSD, the Binance USD. Um, and then the big thing that came out yesterday that many people mistakenly reported, it wasn't just Watch Guru or whoever I sent you the link of, but all these people were sending out that Circle, USDC, those guys, got one of these Wells notices that all these other entities are apparently getting right now, which would have been huge. And everybody was retweeting it like, "Oh, it's time for war" and all this stuff. Like, they're going after USDC, which is the obvious for years now premier stablecoin that people use to kind of transact and onboard in and out of crypto and things like that. BlackRock is involved. This is why it didn't make any sense to me. Like when I sent
Yeah.
it to you, I said, "What the hell is this?"
Right.
And you were in shock. And then, I think minutes, maybe a couple hours later, those tweets are just deleted because apparently that wasn't true.
Right.
Circle themselves said that. So yeah, first off, what would you have made if that had been true? And what do you make of what's really happening? Because what's really happening looks like that a lot of these different entities are receiving the Wells notices from the SEC. I think Gensler's on scorched earth mode basically right now after SBF and FTX.
Yeah.
But Circle was not one of them. And I wonder what that means for USDC's future as well. And I mean that in a positive way for it. But
Yeah,
anyway.
well, you know what it means. It means that BlackRock has a lot of control over what really happens behind closed doors.
Right.
They're large enough, trillions of dollars of investments through BlackRock. We've always kind of said that we need to be really careful what Circle does because of BlackRock. And that's why I was, when you had said that, I was in shock. And when I finally got a chance to read it, it was gone.
Yeah.
So now, as far as regulating, they don't like stable coins. They don't, it takes away from their business model of we need to use the dollar. It also takes away from the business model of creating a CBDC. So, depending on what their long-term game plan is with that, they want to have as few stable coins as they possibly can because they don't want the competition, is what I really think is happening. But BlackRock has enough pull to where they may be one of the only ones standing. Now, that being said, who was it? Gary from Funding Jim.
Oh, yeah.
He touts the trust token quite a bit. Because it's not really a stable coin. It's apparently a trust escrow with the bank, and you just wire it to trust, and it ends up in your account. So that may be something that we can look in if things get too heated with USDC, and then on a back to kind of the original thing, CZ said he didn't even really have anything to do with the BUSD. He was only agreeing to let Paxos use the name somehow. Did you read that as well?
I didn't really. No, I didn't see what he said.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been really busy the last couple of days, and haven't had a chance to do as much homework as I wanted to. But I try to catch some of these things, and I did see that CZ was like, well, Binance BUSD isn't really our coin. We just agreed to use the likeness and our name for Paxos. They basically run it and control it. So that's something I do want to look more into to really see what's going on.
Yeah, I was trying to find it as you were speaking there, but yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, he posted a whole thread on it 2 days ago. In summary, BUSD is issued and redeemed by Paxos, and funds are SAFU. We were informed by Paxos they have been directed to cease minting new BUSD by the New York Department of Financial Services. Paxos is regulated by NYDFS. BUSD is a stablecoin wholly owned and managed by Paxos. So he kind of goes on, but basically is it's a pretty long thread. But yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead and check that out. Anybody that wouldn't like to, but basically trying to clear his name out of it anyway. Which CZ is skilled at doing.
Yeah, he does that
tends
often.
to walk a tightrope. Yeah, exactly. What do you make of the well, okay, let's turn our attention back to USDC. So I think you and I are in agreement that for now, anyway, we don't think anything is happening to it. Not only is nothing happening to it, but it seems like it'll be the chosen one, actually, because of all the big money behind it already. There's probably some friends, I imagine, between these two organizations already. So, I mean, what do you think? USDC is the one that just kind of gets to, run scot-free, as without any issue. Yeah.
Yep, they get the free pass as far as I can tell, and because of who they are. That's kind of what I see happening.
And I said this to you earlier. I mean, like, yeah, is that unfair? Yeah. I mean, life isn't really fair, but in terms of regulation, I would rather just have one be chosen because, the thing is, like, that's been the big thing with Bitcoin and crypto since the beginning. It's just like, the war against regulation, but it's like a necessary evil for more adoption. It's just a big argument since the beginning of time. And if there have to be these other sacrificial lambs, so to speak, for USDC to be the one that they get in bed with, whatever. I mean, it's just kind of, it's the one we're using anyway. I mean,
for the most part, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Pulse Chain launches, because I know there's a couple groups that are planning on launching some stables there. It's going to be, well, we'll see. We'll see how many eyes it gets on it and how quickly, as far as that goes. Now, I don't know that they're pegged to a US dollar. I think they were supposed to be pegged to Pulse Chain. So
Mm.
when you say stable, I'm not sure how that'll work. Uh, but anyway, I know there's supposed to be some stable type coins that are going to be launched when Pulse Chain comes out. Should be interesting.
Yeah.